People who have made friends outside of work and school. How on earth did you do that? Gathered up the courage to go to an event twice instead of trying something out once and flaking like usual. Local subreddits often have meetups. I've went to drink beer and play some board games with a bunch of strangers. It's fun. Also, meetup, https://www.meetup.com/ is neat. I tried meetup, and I wound up going to a board game meetup and I showed up at this little board game store. Walked in. First, I'm hot by the wall of smell that is 24 different body odors. I walked to the back to see like 30 people and I got side-eyed by everyone. Greeted by nobody. Felt uncomfortable as hell and I just noped out. I'm pretty tight with a couple of neighbors. Play pickup hockey and watch stupid movies in the basement. My best friend used to just be my neighbor years ago. We just started chatting and hanging out where we saw each other. Now we talk almost every day on the phone, meet up on the weekends and try to play music, and I've made a couple really great friends through him. It's worth saying hi to the people around you. You never know how good some people could be. Volunteering. A few of my offbeat interests relate to non-profit organizations. Those groups are always glad to have people. You start by doing a thing and pretty soon friendships form. I agree. You make friends you would never met otherwise. For example, I'm now friends with a 68-year-old woman with 26 grandchildren. For context, I'm 18. Hot have thought. I've made tons of great friends through this. For me it's a combination of volunteering and hobbies. I love building stuff, so I volunteer with Habitat for Humanity almost every Saturday. It's a great workout, I get to be outdoors during most phases of construction, and I get to see the same crew as well as meet tons of new people every week. I'd say when I first started volunteering, it was 90% the work that I did that made me come back and 10% the people I liked working with, and nowadays it's 75% the people I love working with that keeps me coming back and 25% the work that I do. I still love the work, but I found that the people are really the driving factor. Finding a volunteering activity you legitimately enjoy doing is one of the greatest secrets of post-school career phase socialization. I met my best friend in the psych ward. No joke, but that's how I met one of my best friends too. It's actually been great because he is the most non-judgmental, wonderful person I have ever met and is so understanding of my mental health issues, and I his. We were both 17 on an adult ward and fucking terrified. Still extremely close almost 10 years later. Sports and hobbies. Exactly what I came to say. My best friend of the past 20 years is a guy I played summer baseball with in HS. Then we played men's league together as well as some social sports and picked up several more friends. Now we have a crew of like 10 really tight friends. Making friends with other friends is much easier than making friends on your own. Reddit. Made a friend on our Tales from the front desk. We moved our chats to Discord and learned that though I was halfway across the country, he lived a half hour away from my folks. We met up in person for the first time when I went to visit them. When I got home, my longtime GF broke up with me, and I decided I was tired of living so far away from my folks and the only thing keeping me there was gone, so I moved out to where they were. Now we're our best friends and write stuff and make a podcast together. Go out and do something you like doing. Go up to someone you want to be friends with and ask them a normal question like, hey, do you know what time this place closes, or something basic like that. If they seem annoyed or bothered, you went up to them. Leave. If they seem fine with it, start talking to them and get to know them. Sometimes people just like to hang out and shoot the shit. That's how I make friends, at least. It's how I've made a lot of friends. The only thing I have to add for this specific approach is to keep paying attention to body language even if they don't seem annoyed that you ask the initial question. If you're at like the gym or a hobby store or something, and they keep looking back at their machine or the shelves, or slowly inching turning away, let them go. But yeah, I agree. Put yourself in situations where you'll find people with similar interests, and be open to meeting new people. I've had some really cool conversations with people on hiking trails, shopping at craft stores, at the library, and I found my hairdresser by complimenting her hair while I was in line at a coffee shop. You can also make online long distance friends by engaging in groups about your hobbies. Like I'm really into fiber arts, knitting and shit, and there are a ton of groups where you all work on your project while chatting on Discord or whatever. Those kinds of groups can be really good for people who aren't comfortable approaching people IRL or have a tough time physically being out of the house for extended periods. What about hiking? Like how do I just approach some rando on the trail without it seeming weird? Or with a hobby like shooting where there's no ranges within 50 miles? IDK, I need more non-solitary hobbies. For hiking, you can talk about the weather, the view, the trail conditions, wildlife, other hikes in the area. LOL, a lot of my hobbies are very solitary too, so I feel you. When it comes to hiking, I happen to live in an area famous for bird watching, and I'm also interested in, but not super knowledgeable about, birds. So if I see someone stopped on the trail looking at a bird or taking pics of one, I usually stop to ask them what kind of bird it is, so long as talking wouldn't scare the bird away. That usually opens things up to a conversation, or at least small talk. When I'm hiking on trails not known for birding, I'll usually say hi and ask how their hike is going. Ask if they've ever hiked the trail before, or mention something cool that I saw, or ask them if they know any other good trails in the area. If the conversation from there is going good, then you can ask if they'd mind you joining them for the next leg of the trail or if they'd prefer to hike in silence. One thing, though, is to be careful how you approach women who are hiking alone. We're told a lot of horror stories about bad shit happening when we go solo hiking, and when people get too friendly when no other hikers are around can send up red flags. Saying hi and starting a conversation is fine, but keep an eye on body language and don't take it personally if she seems kind of nervous. I shoved a book in her face and told her to read it because I had no one to talk about it with. We're still best friends 17 years later. My pastor had the same technique. I've been going to that church for 8 years now. Was that book the Bible? Oddly enough, it was actually Harry Potter. Here's a couple ways I have made friends outside of work and school. Casual conversations. Being friendly to service people at your local shops and restaurants. Get involved in local events. Usually every town has their events posted. Accept invitations that you normally would not consider. Go to the local farmer's market or junk sale. More exposure over time will bring some familiar faces. After a while you will start conversations and get to know people. I have legit met people that I wanted to be friends with and made that happen. Yes, a couple times it did not work out, but my instincts are not usually off on potential friends. My best friend of 12 years was my waitress for at least a year, and we found out we had a lot in common after about a year of little conversations. She came to visit me when I worked at a nearby shop one day, and then from there we started hanging out. I also have another friend who 20 years ago I met randomly while I was walking to the store. She was making red candles and I happened to need a red candle. We now live clear across the country from one another and talk probably twice a year and send Christmas cards. We were best friends for 2 years when we lived near each other. My hairdresser of 5 years and I started spending time together outside the salon. She invited me for coffee and I accepted, and now we hang out every once in a while. I read her cards and she cuts my hair. Be friendly, start conversations and be open. 1. Find a group based on something you actually like. Sports, tabletop games, knitting, etc. Go to multiple meetings. 2. At each meeting, start chatting people up. Don't be afraid to just jump in on a conversation that you think is interesting. It can be way easier than trying to start one with someone who you don't really know. 1. Alternatively, you can totally just go up to people and introduce yourself. Just start asking them questions. People like to talk about themselves, and you'll get a good conversation going 9 times out of 10. 3. From the group of people you are now semi-acquainted with, pick a few whose company you especially enjoy. Ask them to hang out. 1. This can be tricky if they're a very busy person, but if they make an effort to fit you into their schedule, they are worth befriending. If they ghost you, move on and try asking a different acquaintance. It's not worth the effort of forcing someone to hang out who isn't interested. 4. Once you've got some people to hang out with, you've got friends. This can also get you through the early stages of meeting potential dates, as well. If you're more socially awkward, It might be harder to just approach someone or find the will to go to a group more than once. That's why pick something you like. You have a fun thing to get through the awkward I don't know anyone really well yet phase, and you have a designated conversation starter. What's your favorite game if it's a tabletop game club? Or what knitting project are you working on etc. Good luck, and if all else fails, just be open that you're looking for friends. People are generally sympathetic, and men are equally lonely. That multiple times part though. Usually for me it goes that I go once. I am already shit nervous and anxious when I'm going to the meetup cause I am shy as all hell. Then at the meeting my nerves get the best of me. I can barely even hear people talking due to it and I end up sitting low, silent, for an hour or so before leaving post haste without saying a word to anyone. Second time never materializes. Shit sucks. Find a hobby. My husband was lonely and depressed. It is hard for him to make friends because he works third shift every other week. He's up when everybody else is asleep when they are awake, and working whenever they have an outing planned. Then all of a sudden he starts going to this yearly convention for podcasts and tabletop gaming. Next thing you know he's a guest host on several of the podcasts, has quite a bit of a social media presence and somewhat following on their channels, and talks to these people constantly. It has gotten to the point where I come to the convention and complete strangers walk up to me and ask if I am Barry's dad. I'm like, a what? That is my dog. Turns out my dog has a Twitter account I've never heard of with its own following and I am in some of the pictures and people recognize me. Having a geeky hobby turned him from a lonely person into somewhat of a celebrity in that world. So the next time you are at the liquor store or restaurant and somebody compliments you on your He-Man shirt, strike up a conversation with them. The smoking section anywhere and everywhere. So sad how true this is. After I quit I feel like I have no way to engage with people. Smoker pits are just natural places to casually chat with different people. Do activities outside of work and school. Like, join choirs or go rock climbing or craft groups or whatever and join in those social circles. Also, make friends in work and school, then make friends with their friends, and then make friends with the friends of their friends until the chain is long enough that the starting point is rendered irrelevant. The make friends with friends of friends is very underrated, and usually your friends have friends more similar to you than your friend.